Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into. And actually, what I'm going to do today is going to be a little bit different than what I typically do, right? A lot of times, I'm making these podcasts on things like building muscle, body composition, body recomp, nutrition. Again, things that are just going to help you improve your body comp, improve your life, your health. But today I want to go a little bit of a different route. And part of this is just because I feel like I haven't done much of this. And I also get away from this in my social media at times too. And I get too much into like the education side of things and I forget to, kind of post myself, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like obviously people want to know the information, but they also, want to know you. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to break this up into three kind of separate sections here. I'm going to do about me. So just some things about me, maybe you can relate to, or again maybe you didn't know about me. And then two, I want to kind of go over a story about how I got here in terms of training and nutrition and fitness and stuff like that. And then I want to kind of briefly touch on like my transformation from body composition standpoint and kind of where I came from there with that. Again, hopefully the goal would be just to connect with you guys on a little bit more of a deeper level than just, oh hey, he knows things about building muscle and nutrition. So before I do that, I just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you found this podcast be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. And again, I appreciate everybody that listens to this podcast. Next, I have my free masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it. I also have a free masterclass on nutrition periodization. Again, what it is, how to do it, how to set up each phase, and those links are in the show notes. Next, if you haven't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff HOEHN_, and that's where I'm most active. And if you ever have any questions, you can just reach out to me on there. And then lastly, if you find yourself, wondering about the perfect, phase for your goals, maybe you don't know how many workouts you need to do per week, how many reps, maybe the macros, or, how to keep hunger at bay, while you're trying to drop some body fat. If these are all questions that you have and whatnot, then my free 30-minute strategy call is for you. And in this, we kind of dive into your goals, where you want to go, and we help kind of find a path for you moving forward in terms of what's going to work best for you. So if you're interested in that, the link to that is in the show notes. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram. All right, so I want to talk about me a little bit here. Again, just so you can get to know me again a little bit more than, hey, this guy gives out training and nutrition information. All right, I want to talk about this. So first, again, I want to thank everyone who, has followed me. I don't know how long some people have followed me on the podcast. Again, it would be cool to hear. So again, you can reach out to me on Instagram and like send me some messages about how long you've been listening to the podcast. Maybe you're new, maybe this is the first one. Again, I don't typically do things like this if this is the first one, but I did want to switch it up a little bit. So again, anybody who has listened at any point, I appreciate you. And it's been really cool. I started this podcast in late 2020. What a weird time that was, right? It was towards the later end of that COVID year. And man, that was just such a weird time. But that was a very transformative time for me. And I actually was pushed to do this podcast by Jeremiah Bear, who is on this podcast every once in a while with Brandon DeCruz. We do some roundtables, but he was my mentor at the time, and he really pushed me to do a podcast. And I'm really happy I did. It's been really cool to do that. I didn't think I would ever get any listeners, and it's been cool to see the growth there with that. So again, just kind of a little bit of a background on the podcast. So actually, Jeremiah was the one that helped me name it. And again, if you're not sure why I have it named this way, it's just it's not like the mind muscle connection from like a building muscle standpoint, which it kind of does, but it was like I wanted to blend like, hey, we're going to improve our mind, but we're also going to improve our muscles as well too, right? So that's where you kind of get the mind muscle connection. I think maybe sometimes people think that I named it that way to be like, oh, I really think the mind muscle connection is important there with that. But anyways, so let's go over some things that you need to know about me. So first, married to Allie. We've been married now for 4-ish months now, which is kind of crazy. We're actually pregnant. We put that on our social media, but we haven't put that. Well, she's pregnant. I'm not pregnant, but we put that on social media. So we're expecting our first child in September. So that will be super interesting. First, I was a little nervous about it, but I've definitely come around here in the last couple of months. And I think it will be cool to, be able to relate to a lot of people who, do have kids. And that will just help expand kind of my knowledge and be able to apply all the things I've learned. So we had that with Allie, though. It took me over 3 years to get her to want to be with me. I remember we kind of dated a couple times, nothing like serious. We went on a couple dates, but then she just never was super serious about me. It took me 3 years to finally get her to want to date me, and I'm super happy she did. And our relationship, it's also taught me a ton about myself. So, super important. And I'm, really glad that we were able to, get married and build our relationship. It's definitely been a thing that I was single for a really long period of time, and it was you kind of just get like it was super helpful, but you definitely get in some habits, and it's nice to be able to really be able to share things with and be in a relationship. It's very rewarding there with that. So in high school and in my early 20s, I never gave anything 100%. I lived for the weekends, partying, and not much else. I didn't really have any purpose or direction. This just really led to an unconfident person, right? I just, yeah, I didn't have any idea where I wanted to go. I just was kind of getting by day. And, for example, in college, it was like, again, kind of live for the weekends. I enjoyed working out during that period of time, but it was still like, didn't really care about my school. It was just, hey, chasing girls, getting to the weekend, going out, and everything like that. So, and really, I think, again, this happened in high school and in college, but again, luckily, I always had fitness to kind of fall back on, and it always did help me. But yeah. I did have and so this is going to be part of my story that I go into here in a little bit, but I did have a bad breakup in a job that was just going nowhere in my mid 20s. And this is what made me dig deep and find my passion purpose. Now I wake up every day thankful for what I do and where I'm at in my life. And I just can't imagine I just can't imagine not figuring that out at that time there with that. And again, I'll kind of dive into that. That's kind of where my story comes from. And I want to go over that here in a little bit. Um, I love helping people with their health and fitness because I know this makes everything else in your life better. It teaches you so many things, and I want others to feel this way too, right? I think people that listen to this probably are somewhat into their health and fitness, but either way, I want to share these things because of the positive impact it's had on my life and how it can make you feel. And so I want to help others there with that. So I'm an avid hockey fan from St. Louis, Missouri. So I love my St. Louis Blues. I've been a fan since I can remember. Hockey, if you ask Allie, she tells me that, we watch too much hockey, play too much hockey, whatever it may be. It's all about hockey. And so I really enjoy it. It's just something that I've always been passionate about. I play once a week. On the weekends, I play roller. I don't play ice hockey. And so I do that, play in a men's league. And again, you can find me watching pretty much every single Blues game that's on. They play 82 games in a year. I probably watch 70 of them. And those 12 that I don't watch, I'm checking the score and making sure I know what is going on there. I'll have to say, I'm not very proud of this, but on our honeymoon, and we were in St. Lucia, I definitely stayed up pretty late by myself one night to make sure I watched a couple of the games, and I probably was the only person in St. Lucia watching a St. Louis Blues game there with that. Anyways, my favorite foods are sushi and pizza. Again, I love it. I love sushi. Again, not like the just like raw fish. I like the rolls. Those are usually the ones there with that. I had a talk with Menno Hensemans about this. He called it something. I think it was like fusion. So I can't remember what it was. And then I love pizza, right? Pizza's always been my thing, and I freaking love that. So here's kind of a weird fact. I love to make my coffee the night before and drink it the next morning. So people are kind of grossed out by this. But I don't know what happened. I just think one day I made coffee, like I had some leftover coffee because I was like, oh, I don't feel like making it. I just want to have what's there. I don't want to have to make a new pot. And I was kind of hooked since then. So this might be weird, but it's something that I enjoy. So I'll typically make my coffee the night before, leave it overnight, and then drink it in the morning and the next day. I'm also a passionate person. If I really like something, I really like it. And one of those things does happen to be health and fitness. And so, there with that, always finding ways to learn more. I really enjoy learning more. It is very helpful that to me, learning more also will help me help more people and help grow my business. So it kind of is a nice little there with that. And like I said, I'm passionate. So again, with the Blues, it's like you can kind of see there with that. So I did graduate with my master's in nutrition and human performance, which is pretty funny because I used to hate school. Like even when I got my undergrad, like somehow I really don't know how I graduated with the effort that I put into it. And then in high school, I mean, just absolutely no effort whatsoever. What cheated way too many times that here. Haven't really told many people that, but definitely cheated way too many times there with that. One thing I've learned is I've learned not to get too high when things are going well, but also to not get too low when things aren't going great. You need to put your head down and keep working. This kind of reminds me of recently, we had a lot going on, the last couple of months. We got married, honeymoon, get back. We got Dale, our puppy, which I forgot to mention. We do have Dale, our puppy, who I freaking love. He's sleeping on the floor right now. But then at the end of December, my grandfather passed away. And then, a couple weeks later, we found out we were pregnant. We're moving into a new house that we've been, that it's like a new build house. And so like all these things happened. And then on top of it, I had this kind of like weird stretch of clients just saying they, needed to move on. And again, that's going to happen, right? I work in that business. That's going to happen. But it kind of all happened at once. And it was just a lot, finding out I'm going to be a parent. And so, I kind of relied on this, right? I knew that this time, like, again, it was a lot of exciting things, but it was a lot, I'm a person that's very routine based. And so all those things obviously changed my routine and how I went about day to day. And it just changed, right? And I think just like with everybody, change can be hard. And for me, when I really get into a routine, change can be, really challenging. And so, but then also on top of it, had some things go on where more than normal, some clients left, and I just started kind of worrying. But then I was like, you know what, like this is just a low, like this isn't going to last long. Things are going to get back to normal. Things are going to get great again, and that helps you during that period of time. However, you also don't want to get too high when things are going well, because you know that inevitably things are going to come back down there with it. So I think it's important to not get too high when things are going well, but also to not get too low there with that. I'm also passionate about lifelong learning and always getting better. And this is something that, again, I didn't always like, that wasn't always my mindset. It was at one point, it was just like, hey, I am who I am, and this is how it's going to be. But then somehow I got the itch, and, I started listening to podcasts. This was right around the time that I left my full-time job, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And I haven't really looked back since then, right? Like always making sure I'm learning more and trying to get better in any way. That there's some things that I'm still probably a little resistant to change in some things, but overall, like as a whole, I definitely, like to improve. And, that's super important to me to continue to learn more. The best advice I can give anyone, and the biggest life lesson I've learned, is to invest and believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it, invest in yourself as well too, right? I spend thousands of dollars a year on coaching and education, and investing in myself and my business. And I think a lot of people overlook that, especially if you are somebody that, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be training or nutrition that you get into, but if it's something else that you enjoy, and, things are kind of challenging, like you do need to invest in yourself, and you need to, again, whether that is your health and fitness, whether that's whatever skill that you want to develop, like invest in that, because that is going to pay off. Yeah, it sucks in the short term that you need to spend money on it. And, that's not great then, but it is going to pay off there with that. So these are just a few things about me that I wanted to share before I dive into this. I can't believe I didn't mention Dale right away. He's down there shaking his head at me right now. All right, so now I want to kind of go into a story about how I got here. I'm just reading some of this. Okay, so all right, so I graduated. I went to Missouri State University, and so my first job, like full-time job, was an assistant manager at a local chain gym. About a year later, I was a manager at another location, so I got promoted. I learned a lot, but 2 years in, I just knew I wanted more. Like I would sign people up, I'd build a relationship with them, and then I would never see them again. And again, I knew I wanted more. It just wasn't fulfilling to do that, right? Like to just like sign people up, try to hit those numbers, keep the gym clean, train employees. Like I just knew that there was more. I just was not happy, right? And again, this goes back to before I really started in self-development. I think this definitely helped me get on the right path, right? Like being a manager, like being a leader for others, like that certainly started to get me on that right path. However, I was dating somebody at the time, and when we broke up, it was just like I just felt like I put a lot into that relationship, and there wasn't much else outside my life. So like it made it like even worse, right? And so that just luckily for me, fortunately, it made me like kind of look within and be like, why is this crushing me so much? And again, I didn't have a purpose, right? So I started to, get into things like some podcasts, right? I remember The School Greatness by Lewis Howes. That was super helpful. Reading I think it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Like all these things started to get me to kind of go down this path and start getting that momentum rolling there. With that. So again, it was like one of those things that was not a great time, but it was super helpful for me to kind of get me to push forward. So one night after a conversation with one of my friends, he was a trainer. And he was like kind of talking me into doing it. He knew I was like super unhappy. And so like literally, I just remember this one night we had this conversation, and like it was a light bulb where I was like, oh crap, I need to do this. And so I decided I was putting in my 2 weeks. I gave up a good income. I was 26. Full-time income. Luckily, I still did live at home with my parents. So like I did have that kind of safety net there. But I gave up a good income, full-time income, to become a trainer, where you only get paid for sessions you put in at a different location. And thought I was crazy for doing this, right? Giving up that full-time job to become a trainer. But I just had this like blurry vision that it was going to work out. I remember just being like, I just know this is going to work out, even though like in that time it was like super stressful. Again, giving up that income. Well, the crazy thing about this is the company I worked for, the training company I wanted to work for was like subcontracted through them, right? So it was like they were together, but it was separate, right? I was an employee at the gym. The training company that was there, they were all independent contractors in there. And so they told me that I couldn't train for 3 months, right? Because they didn't want this like manager leaving to go train. And I think they just kind of wanted to set an example here. I think I was like the first person to do this. They just wanted to set an example of like, hey, you can't just like do this, right? So they said I couldn't train for 3 months, right? It's like, hey, you can do this, but you can't train until I remember I quit in like November or December, kind of the busy time around in the fitness industry. Like you can't train till March. So I was like, what the hell? So 3 months, no paycheck for a 26-year-old. Um, I mean, at the time there was a lot of hard feelings and whatnot towards the company for doing that, but at this point, I just don't even care anymore. It all helped me out, allowed me to take time to really study for my certification and kind of just get my head straight with everything. But again, 3 months without a paycheck, right? So fast forward 3 months, again, I really started to dive into continuing education for myself, got my trainer certification and whatnot there. So 3 months, no paycheck, I started. I was at the gym from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. those first few weeks. I did a lot of free sessions, but no new clients. My first paycheck was $212. I just remember like seeing that first paycheck and just like kind of fall to my knees, or like feeling like I wanted to fall to my knees. And I was just like, oh crap, that's not great. This is not good. 3 months without a paycheck. And then my first one's $212. To make matters worse, after talking to the manager at the current location, he had his best month ever. And here I was going 3 months with no paycheck, and my first check was $212. But something in me knew I just had to keep going. The old me would have given up and found a more steady income there with that. It took me over a month to get my first client, but I did start to pick up momentum. But I was still making way less than I ever was as a manager. I had so many days and nights where I was about to give up, but I just kept going. I kept learning more, and again, telling I just loved this stuff, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. Fast forward to now and full time online at this point, right? Here I am, and I'm making a very comfortable living doing it. And I'm not trying to share this to brag. I'm just sharing this to inspire you, and also to show you that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not just some random, online coach or anything like that. I do really love this stuff. I take it seriously, and I work super hard for it. And I'm going to keep growing and building. And I'm not close to being done. Again, I haven't done this alone though. I've had so many mentors and coaches along the way who have helped me throughout, right? I already mentioned someone like Jeremiah, so he's been super influential on me. And there's been so many other people as well too. But the biggest reason I wanted to share this is like just to give you a background of, it wasn't like I just, one day was like, oh, okay, I'm a trainer. Now I'm gonna have this podcast and boom, here I am. It's like it was very challenging, and I wanted to give up many times, but I just like knew deep down that this is what I wanted to do, and I just knew it was somehow gonna work out. It's like kind of crazy to think about it as I'm like talking about it now, because it could have easily not worked out, but somehow I just had this like vision that this was gonna happen, and I'm here and enjoying it. And again, I think the big kind of takeaway from this is, again, just like if you feel something, like you need to chase it. And again, it might not be easy, but it's super important to follow through with that. So that was a story about how I got here. So again, if anybody has any questions on this, I'd love to chat about it. But again, it wasn't super easy there with that. And so lastly, I want to kind of wrap this up by kind of talking about my transformation from a body perspective. I may hit on, this is going to be more like body transformation, right? So again, I kind of talked about some things about me, what I find valuable. Also talked about my story about how I got into training and what that looks like. And now I just want to kind of chat about my transformation. So, when I was younger, I have a picture here that you obviously can't see, but I was, 17-ish, 18-ish. And I was, I'm short. I'm like 5'6.5", 5'7", 5'7" on a good day. On my license, I'm 5'7". So you guys know what that means. Anyways, I didn't always have muscle. I was I was once a skinny kid, right? So short and skinny, not the greatest there with that. I got into lifting to build my confidence and my body, of course. I was short, but I knew I could build muscle to make the best of it. So I did do some training in high school for sports, but I never really took it seriously. And I remember I did like it though. I definitely feel like I weight trained more than like other people in sports in high school. But I remember me and my buddy, we would basically do squats and curls. Like that's all we did. And it's kind of funny because I feel like my two biggest body parts are my quads and my arms. So maybe there was something to that. Anyways, after high school, I did fall in love with lifting, was something positive that I did to invest in myself. There with that. So I did, get once high school was over, I did actually join a gym and stay consistent there with that. From age 18 to like around 26, kind of that time frame where like I wasn't like obviously I was working out, which was like self-development, but I wasn't doing much else. This was like obviously around the time that I was still working in the gym, things like that. I didn't have much focus on things like recovery, sleep, and nutrition, right? It was just kind of lifting and finding programs on bodybuilding.com, and just kind of doing anything and everything, right? There was no like structure to it. It's just like, oh, lift weights. All right, I'm going to get bigger. This time was more about just going to the gym and just pushing it every time. And I was really only focused on upper body and taking supplements, right? Like I remember just taking so much pre-workout all the time. I have these memories of being in college taking like these crazy pre-workouts that like, I remember I took Jack 3D. I don't know if anybody remembers that one, but I took that pre-workout initially and that was like my introduction to like caffeine. And then in college, I just remember like having this feeling of like drinking the night before and then taking these pre-workouts before I worked out and like taking probably too much and man, just feeling like not great with it. Anyways, during this time though, I learned a lot and I continue to stay consistent, right? I think that's a big thing. Changing your body is staying consistent with it. So it's like, yeah, I wasn't doing things perfectly, but I was staying consistent, right? I was getting to the gym and I just continued to lift because I knew that's what I needed to do. So that was important. But, some things that since then that I've kind of done that kind of took me from that okay physique to better physique. So obviously smarter training overall, better technique, learning more about that, better programming, better exercise selection, more focus on recovering and not just doing more. And I think that was a big one too, right? It was always like, hey, I had to train 7 days a week. I could never take any days off. But obviously more focus on recovery and not just doing more was helpful. But obviously, like I said, learning better technique, learning better programming, learning better exercise selection. Like these are all things that, in this kind of time frame, I really dove in more into training and fitness. And that certainly helped me there with that. Another big thing that kind of helped my transformation was my nutrition. So I dialed in this piece and it really does play a massive role. Not always like quote unquote fat loss dieting, but also just making better food choices overall. Fueling my body with things that it needs versus like kind of just wants. Again, there's still some wants. Obviously, you guys know I love pizza and sushi now, so there's obviously still some wants in there with that. But again, I'm fueling my body to build muscle and to help with training and recovery, and I'm not just like focused on just eating for like pleasure or what's the easiest there with that. That's really been the case for extended period of time now. Sleep and stress, I place a huge emphasis on sleep and stress management now at this point. Like sleep is super important. Again, that wasn't something that I was even on my mind at all at one point, and now that's something that is super important to me. And then stress management as well too, again, managing that stress, again, adding in some breath work, making sure I do relax, and just being more aware of, how I respond to certain things has been super helpful for a stress management standpoint, right? I think too many people just kind of let things happen to them and they let everything happen to them and they don't really sit and think, how is this impacting me, right? So again, this is where I think breath work probably helped, but also being more aware of those things, understanding how my body works has been super helpful to help, manage that stress. Less drinking overall. So early 20s was all about having fun. I still enjoy my drinks from time to time, but in much more moderation. And I won't get drunk at this point. Like I can't remember the last time I was like actually really drunk. I just don't like the feeling and I know how it impacts me. I know how it impacts my sleep, how it makes me feel after. And so I've just kind of associated those things. And so I'm able to moderate much better. And that's just had a massive impact on my body transformation. There's more trust in the process rather than worrying about every little detail. I'm not stressing about every last little thing. Again, trusting that process, understanding that it's going to take time. And these are the things that if I can do consistently and whatnot, it's going to add up. But really, the big thing with like the big changes is one time, I think as you just like grow up, that's definitely going to come with filling out, right? Like obviously you're going to have, if you can stay consistent with weight training from like 18 to 20, like you're going to see muscle growth, right? Because you've just been doing it for a while. If you ask anybody, like if you look at anybody big that's in your gym or that you look up to from a body composition standpoint, like they've just been doing it for an extended period of time, right? And then to top that off, consistency. For myself, I haven't completely missed a week of training. That wasn't planned since I was 18. If you want to build muscle and change your body, you have to stay consistent. And so consistency is that big thing there, right? Like I haven't missed multiple workouts because something popped up, right? Again, that doesn't make me better. It's just that this has just always been top of the list of priorities for me to get done. And we'll continue to be that way. We'll see how I feel when I have kids, right? Things may change slightly. But again, will be really cool to be able to kind of share how that goes. But I do know it's still going to be, top of the mind, top priority there with that. So, but again, I haven't missed from a training perspective. I haven't missed an entire week ever. Again, unless, like I said, I was either sick or even injuries. Really, luckily, knock on wood, haven't been derailed by those because like things came up, right? Like, and so that's super important. That too many times I see with clients when, and again, this is part of the coaching process and what we do, but clients that do kind of not wither away. They don't ever get any momentum is because anytime things get busy, they find ways to not get into the gym. And then it's like, they're always kind of trying to find that consistency, right? They do good for 2 weeks and then boom, something comes up. Now we got it. And so that consistency is super important to keep momentum, and that momentum and consistency over time is what's going to get you to, change your body there with that. So those are some things there with that helped with my transformation. And this is the end of this episode. So hopefully you were able to learn a little bit more about me. Again, if there was anything that you related to on this, please let me know. Send me a message. If there's anything that didn't make sense, let me know. And again, if you just found this helpful and cool to just learn a little bit more about me, let me know so I can maybe start to do a little bit more of these. Or if you absolutely hated this episode and you're upset that you learned more about me and now you don't want to listen to me anymore, you can let me know that too. But either way, I appreciate everybody. That's it for this episode. I'll talk to you guys next time.